Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the poem Some Keep the Sabbath Going to Church, written by Emily Dickinson. Now, before I go into this topic, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so the channel can continue to grow. So, this poem by Emily Dickinson, very interesting, very powerful here. There's a lot that's being said. Yeah, there's definitely a lot that's being said. So one thing that Emily Dickinson talks about here is that, well, some people pile up Sundays or Saturdays or Fridays, whatever your Sabbath day is. Emily Dickinson is saying you keep the Sabbath by going to church. It's like on and off, you get the routine, you get the religion, you have all these things that you go through over and over and over again. There's the repetition to it, and then you go home and then you come back, and then you go home and then you come back. She's saying she does it differently. She's not going to a church, or the speaker. Let's just say the speaker here. The speaker says that they have a different way. When we think about Emily Dickinson, we're thinking about romanticism. Okay, we're thinking about transcendentalism, and these people here, people who believe in romanticism and transcendentalism, they're all about the feelings, the emotions, nature, and having a spiritual connection. And Emily Dickinson is pretty much saying that there are other ways to reach God. Some, and again, this poem is not condemning people who go to church. It's just kind of like observing the truth and kind of like inserting another truth that, some people connect to God by going to church, and that's certainly true. But the perspective that's being given is that this speaker doesn't keep the Sabbath by going to church, but the speaker does keep the Sabbath through other means, which is interesting. And the poem, the speaker is saying that, well, God cares more about your heart and who you are every day, rather than just who you are for a couple of, for a time at a church. Uh, this is quite significant. Um, it's really fascinating because, again, this poem is not condemning going to church. This poem is saying that, well, here's a different way of doing it. Here's a different way of keeping the Sabbath. It's like, I acknowledge that the Sabbath exists. I acknowledge that people go to church on the Sabbath, but at the same time, I don't. And I still keep the Sabbath by staying at home and having my orchard and singing in different ways. And the poem kind of gives comparisons to different things around the home, around the speaker, that connect or that's makeshift to the things in the church. So, God is speaking to the speaker. So there's a sermon. There's an orchard that's kind of like, I guess, the church, and that's where the speaker is roaming in the orchard. Um, there's different things that resemble things that you would find in a church. And again, when we're looking at romanticism here, if this is Emily Dickinson speaking, Emily Dickinson loves nature. From a romantic perspective, a lot of transcendentalists believe that you can connect to God in nature. So maybe to her, nature is the church, and God speaks through nature, and there's singing, there's connecting to the natural world, there's seeing the sublime, there's the celestial, there's connecting to something greater than yourself. So it is very fascinating. Now, in terms of deeper meaning and analysis of this poem, it's, we can agree and disagree. Like, personally, as a Christian, I do go to church. So this kind of made me think about that, because I do go to church every Sunday, and I do keep the Sabbath by going to church. And I think from a Christian perspective, the reason why Christians go to church is because, well, the Bible makes it very clear that Christians are stronger when they're together. Sheep usually move around in flocks, all right? They usually move around in groups. And when you can build community, you can have several friends and people at church that that you speak to, you celebrate holidays with, you celebrate Christmas with, and Thanksgiving with. You make friends in a church. You may go to church and find someone that you like, and you start dating. So, church for Christians is the center of community, is the center of connection. People, maybe they find somebody that can get them a job in a church. Maybe they find a gym partner. Maybe they find a job, somebody, an apartment that can connect them with an apartment, that can connect them with a job. Maybe you can start a Bible study. Maybe you can start a garden with somebody at a church. So church to Christians, one of the reasons why we go to church is to fellowship with one another, is to connect with one another. Yes, we worship, we read the Bible together, we see God together in the church, but also the church is a great place to build community. So there's a different perspective. And yes, you can go in the wilderness and you can stay at home and get closer to God. That is one way. Because again, God is everywhere. The Spirit of God fills everything. The whole universe, God is present. But church definitely has, from the Christian perspective at least, the church has a place to bring people together. And from God's perspective, that is one of the most important things, because again, from the beginning of the Bible, it's not good for men to be alone. Because when we're alone, we're quite depressed. We humans, we love to be around other people. We love physical contact, fist bumps, tackling, handshakes. We convey messages and emotions through touch. I mean, it's strange, but when you want to, like in business, you're gonna shake hands with your business partner or with a client of yours. You shake hands, it conveys information. I don't know why we have to touch to convey that, this has been a good interaction, but shaking of hands is, for some reason, it's like, this was good. Yeah, this was good. You're not a horrible person. It's like, why do we shake hands? I mean, I see you, you see me. We could use words, but we don't. We have to establish this realm of touching, which some people don't like that, but this is something human beings have done forever. When somebody's feeling down or sad, we hug each other. So there's a sense of physical interaction between human beings that's been around forever, like leaning on someone, putting your arm over someone. Again, this community, physical presence, physical touch, it's something, a part of the human condition that's interesting. I mean, what does it mean? There's a lot of information that we get from that, or a lot of things that we convey through touch, like just a fist bump, a handshake. You know, go figure. But there's a lot here. Ultimately, the poem is saying that the speaker is saying that, well, some people do keep all these religious things and go to church, but at the same time, the poet is kind of saying, well, you got to seek God through other means, and sometimes it's not through church, and sometimes maybe the speaker is presenting a different perspective that might be better, from her perspective at least, that maybe nature and reality in the natural world might be a better way to experience God. But again, it's controversial. Not all Christians would agree, because again, I'll bring the point of community. Christians love community. People want to be around each other. No one wants to be lonely. We have a physical aspect to our interactions. Fist bumps, handshakes, hugs. There's a physical aspect to the human condition. And again, if you don't have that, I don't know, it leads to depression and sadness and loneliness. So, go figure. But yeah, again, really good poem. It conveys a huge message, but also I think it leaves us in a place that's very controversial, because we have to kind of like agree or disagree with what's being presented to us. So please remember to either like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. That was an interesting poem. Interesting.